Today is the new moon in Cancer, and Cancer is the theme. The theme of it is the mother, it's the divine mother, it's the nurturing energy, and it's also the emotions. It's our emotional body, it's the flow of water. And so we may feel this heightened energy of emotions right now running through us. And there may be some particular themes that are showing up for us in our life around emotions. And something quite interesting happened to me today when I decided to do this live is as soon as I sent the email out, I started feeling emotional. And so then I was being faced basically with my own feelings coming up around this live. So it's quite interesting how quickly things can manifest these days. And I don't know about you, but I'm experiencing this accelerated rate of thought process and manifestation of things happening really quickly, and how powerful our thoughts and our feelings are, and our words, which are creating our reality. So when we think about emotions, we take the word in two separate pieces. We have the E and then we have the motion. So the motion is that flowing energy, and the energy is meant to flow. It's not meant to be stagnant. It's not meant to be stuck in our bodies. But what happens is that we actually start to repress what we're feeling when it's uncomfortable. Hi, Kristen. I see you've joined. Welcome. Like what happens is there's this essence of experience, and we repeat our experiences over and over and over again until we learn the lesson. And we have our emotional ways that we have learned to deal with things from the age of 0 to 7. And so what happens is we continuously replay what we are experiencing, meaning that if we've had a coping mechanism in childhood, we continuously will repeat that over and over in our life when we're faced with the same situations until we are aware of the lesson. So the first step in empowering ourselves emotionally is awareness. It's having that key. So awareness is the key. And in order to start to change what we're feeling, we move into that state of acceptance. And acceptance is not settling. It's not settling for what we're feeling. Acceptance is acknowledging what we feel. So it's not meant that we're supposed to accept it and say, okay, this is how I feel. I'm angry and I'm just going to sit in my anger. And it also doesn't mean that we go into the thought process around, why am I angry? Where did this come from? And this is part of the paradigm of healing. We have gone through this process where we can look into our past, we can look at what happened in our childhood, we can see what has happened and why everything has happened. But the rate at which we are accelerating and shifting and changing on the planet right now, we are able to actually shift that so much quicker and not have to go into that trauma again and to re-experience it or relive it. And there are many ways that we can do this. So I'm going to share a quick story about one way that I experienced emotional release through a meditative therapy that I did at Osho Meditation Resort in India. So I signed up for this program. It was 21 days and it was called Mystic Rose. And I was drawn to it because it delved into the nature of emotions. It delved into the experience of emotions. So we weren't coming at it from a thought process space. We were coming at the release from an experiential space. And in this program, we were divided up into 3 sets of 7 days. The first 7 days, we got together every morning for 3 hours and we laughed. Now we laughed in silence. We laughed and we did not communicate, we did not touch each other. We could do whatever we wanted to do in our own space, but we were completely in silence. And as I observed the rest of the class, I could see some people were struggling with even allowing themselves to get into the emotion of laughter, the emotion of joy, of celebration. And for me, what I did as a process was I started thinking of all the times that I experienced something funny in my life, that someone made me laugh. And I got really deep into my belly. And if you have ever done laughter yoga, that's a thing that has started as well. That's like become a movement. Um, it's very similar to that, although I can't say I've done laughter yoga, so I can't say exactly what it is. But this is 3 hours a day of laughing in silence, other than the laughter itself. So no words for 7 days straight. And we're talking belly laugh. So placing my hands on my belly was helpful, and just getting into that and it might sound a little bit like, whoa, what's happening, right? She's laughing at nothing. But trust me, there are so many times in our life when things are funny and we don't laugh. We don't allow ourselves that freedom to express what we're feeling. And I think about how many times in school, and I was brought up going to church. And another story within that, I remember there was a guy that used to sit in front of us in church, and he was a little bit older than me, and he would turn back to my brother and I and always make us laugh. And I remember feeling like, oh, I can't laugh, I'm in church. It was like this conditioning, you're not allowed to laugh. And in school, how many times are you told to be quiet when you're expressing yourself? Because it's this structured container of how it should be. And so I laughed and laughed and laughed. On day 6, I remember I laughed so hard, I started feeling tears in the corner of my eyes. The night previous to that, I was at an Osho discourse, and he had said, you're going to get to a point where you laugh so hard, you're going to want to cry. Trust the process, go deeper, and laugh more. There is more repressed emotion to release. And this is a very powerful practice because within our stomach, we hold so much energy. Our lower 3 centers of the body hold so much repressed emotion. And when we can start to liberate that energy and allow it to flow through our body, we free up so much energy within us, right? So this laughter is activating that entire center, the entire energy within the belly. So on day 6, I could feel the tears. I stopped the tears. I laughed more. Day 7, I laughed more. Day 8, now we're moving into the second part of this meditation. For the next 7 days, for 3 hours a day, crying. So naturally, the tears were already there on day 6. And what happened was I didn't even have to try. It was like, it just came out. It came out so quickly, and my heart was so ready. Like I was in such a raw space within myself that I was ready to release. And at first the tears came, and there was really nothing I even knew that I was crying about. It was just the natural emotion that followed all of that release of emotion that was in the lower centers of my body. And naturally, when we release the energy, it rises up and then it opens our heart center. So that is the process, starting at the lower chakras, moving up into the heart, and then opening that space. So crying and crying and crying. Then it got to a point where I started using experiences in my life and thoughts of those experiences to help me to go deeper into the tears, to go deeper into release. And you think about how protected we are in our hearts. Not allowing other people in, not trusting, not allowing ourselves to actually feel love, how much we move into the space of fear and how naturally that has been conditioned in our society. And so this meditation freed, unfroze all of that barrier around my heart center. And I remember getting closer to that 7th day, don't exactly know which day it was, but I remember I was so cleaned out, I felt like laughing. I was ready to laugh because the tears, like I'd let so much emotion out, so much sadness, so much grief, so much pain, so much suffering. And then I knew I'm not supposed to be laughing right now. Go deeper, right? I listened to what Osho said, go deeper. And so I cried more. And then it released more layers. And then we got to day 15, the last 7 days, and we moved into silence. 3 hours a day in 45-minute intervals. And then every 15 minutes, we took a break and we danced to some very gentle music and then sat back down and went into silence. Now, the interesting part of this is that I had just come from Isha Yoga Center with Sadhguru, and I had done 2 years of the same practice every single day, of being so disciplined in my practice to neutralize how I was feeling, what my emotions were, and not in a sense that it was negative by any means, but it really helped to bring me into that state of neutrality. Yet I was sitting on a lot of emotions from my past. And so when I got into this process, I had this idea that in the last 7 days of silence, I would completely move into silence for the entire day and take that space for myself. And in the Osho Meditation Resort, they did have silence badges, so you could put it on. And when you went to order food and pay for food, when you did anything within the resort, it was acknowledged that you were wearing a silence badge and no one would talk to you. So you could operate and do everything that you needed to without having to communicate, which was beautiful. And the interesting thing that happened is the discipline part of my mind wanted me to do this for the last 7 days in silence, yet it was completely reversed. So by day 2 of this first 14 days, so of the laughing, by day 2 of the laughing, I was already putting my silence badge on because I was processing so many emotions. There were so many things coming up for me. And the first 14 days of that Mystic Rose program, I had my silence badge on. And I didn't want to have any relations with the outside, with anyone else, because I was going so deep into my process. And so then when we got to this last 7 days of silence, I was going out every night. When they were having dance parties, I was celebrating, and it was the most beautiful, freeing experience. I have to say it's one of the most powerful meditations I have experienced to date. And so where I'm going with this is a very direct way of releasing emotions with awareness, a very direct way, going right deep into the experience of it. And there are many other ways of going about it. When we get into breath work, meditation, moving our body, being in water is also a very powerful way to release and cleanse the emotional body. And specifically using salt, sea salt. Epsom salt's really good for the body. Sea salt is really good for the energetic, the emotional body in a bath. And so when we bring this back to the awareness, that's the first key. It's having the awareness of our emotions. And it's also identifying what I'm feeling, acknowledging it, and accepting it. And then the second step of that empowerment is to respond, okay? Because it is our responsibility, our emotions. And a lot of the times, it is one of the greatest lessons of life is to see that no one else is responsible for how we feel. Although when we are in our emotional reactions, that is the projection. That is the tendency to feel that someone else is causing me to feel this way, and they have to change so that I can feel better. Right? So there's a multitude of different projections we can have on the other person when we're in an experience that triggers us. And so when we come back to that awareness, the awareness is, where am I responsible for this? Right? I have the ability to respond and not react. And I know that in the heat of the moment, I've been there many times, it's not as easy to get into that state where I'm like, I'm not going to react, right? It's like when you're in it, you're in it. But the more that we practice this, the easier it becomes. So awareness and acceptance of the feeling. Because if we don't accept it, we're pushing it away, which causes resistance, which causes it to amplify and expand within us. So acceptance, and part of that acceptance is also about relaxing into the body. And the second step of that empowerment is our ability to respond, taking responsibility for what we are feeling. And as I said before, you can look into your past through the eyes of awareness, through that discerning, detached, not going into the story of it, but seeing where it may have stemmed from in our past. And it's not an invitation to dive into that, because when we come into this present moment, we can recreate a new future. We no longer have to repeat that emotional reaction as we did in the past. So in that present moment, that is the third step. We can simply tell ourselves, stop. So when we catch ourselves, that one word, stop, brings us into this moment. And if you think about patterns and programs that we play out and how they loop over and over and over again, if we say stop, we're sticking that stick into the wheel of karma, and it stops the wheel from turning. And it brings us into this now moment. And in this now moment, we have the opportunity to respond, to do something different, to change, to take that responsibility. And to also bring a deeper awareness is, what is it that I need right now? So with this new moon being in Cancer, and Cancer being the energy of the mother, we have the mother and father aspect within us, the masculine and the feminine. And so that mothering energy, how can we mother ourselves? What do we require in this moment for our inner child to be nurtured? And so when we bring this all together, awareness is the key. And the more that we can bring conscious awareness to what we're experiencing, the more that we become empowered within ourselves to choose our experiences. And every time we bring ourselves back into that present moment, we are creating a new future for ourselves. So I want to thank everyone for joining me here. I don't see any questions that have come in. Feel free to reach out, and I look forward to seeing you all very soon. Have a beautiful and blessed new moon in Cancer.